My name is Matt Stanfill. I'm a Fulbright Scholar in Cambodia right now, working on teacher training and quality education in Cambodia. My name is Matt Stanfill. I'm a Fulbright Scholar in Cambodia right now, working on teacher training and quality education in Cambodia. My vision of development is progress in any way, shape, or form, because different cultures measure progress in different ways. Development in some areas is different than development in other areas, and so basically what I see for development is progress. Is it better comparable to what it was yesterday, 5 days ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago? Very Aristotelian sort of functional processes kind of definition of development.
So in Cambodia, what does development look like there?
Ideally?
Yeah. And how about Cambodia and then at home?
Those are vastly different.
Yeah.
In Cambodia, development is sort of measured on a Western scale as well, but given their recent political problems with the Khmer Rouge, that's only been 30 years. Progress is very, very, very slow for development. Infrastructurally, economically, socially, still lots of problems. In the United States, we've had a little bit more time to practice it, we've got a little bit more freedom, and so I think development has taken off because of those freedoms, because of the education that people have, because education is the real key to development in any area.
Can you give an example of development or progress?
When people are...
What I think development should be. You know, and then you can talk about individual development of your individual life as a human being. You can talk about community development or world development, but generically, I mean, I would say that development has to do with meeting the needs of the current generation in a way that would not compromise or take away from the ability of future generations to do so. So building on the knowledge of earlier generations, and then there's this assumption that, you know, a lot of groups are, particularly the groups I work with up in the mountains and such, that they've been left out of this development process, and I think that's entirely wrong interpretation. I mean, of course, they have been developing and adapting and changing and modifying their lifestyles to different conditions. And so, but you could see it as a process of adaptation, changing environments and contexts. But it should be something that contributes to the betterment of humanity, I would say. And at the same time, takes into consideration the well-being of the larger, you know, non-human planet or animals, whatever it may be.
Another good author I would cite for this is Amartya Sen, who wrote Development as Freedom. And so I agree with his thesis that development equals freedom, and that development means having access to options. Whether or not you exercise those options is a different question. So to me, development means increasing one's capability by giving them more options. So it's absolutely not solely an economic thing. Because, again, education is always important, having access to that, having access to any kind of information in general, like the media, having access to public health, all of those kind of sanitary things that greatly affect one's quality of life. So I think development is something that should be seen from a quality of life standpoint, not from just a financial economic standpoint, because there's so much else that goes into economics as well, and to development. So I think it's a growth in opportunities and awareness of opportunities and exercising of those opportunities.
I would say first you have to distinguish between development and growth. Right? There can be a lot of growth but no development. Development is when you have all constituents of place, all factors, all conceivable factors that move together in the same direction, usually to benefit all parties or factors that are contributing to that. And growth is when you have one or two factors that kind of are increasing or changing, but they don't change the entire dynamic. So they're working independently of each other. it's kind of like the difference between a team and a task-oriented group.
Do you think the word development gets misused then?
I think so. I think a lot of things can be generalized into development, but I think it should be more specific as to what field you're actually talking about, or how these bodies are interacting with each other.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people say, I'll talk in this context of urban development, I think a lot of people say urban development, but like, what is urban development? Does it just mean that the city is growing and so we think it's developing? Or does it mean that we're all kind of growing together to form a more sustainable lifestyle and we can live in a kind of a better place that we're all creating and we're all participating in? Because I think a lot of urban development is actually just urban growth. And a lot of people are kind of pushed out, they're put to the side, they are not equal participants.
Of the latter being what was before. X.
That's on so many levels.
Well, you can choose whatever you.
Well, I do work with kids, so I'll start with the individual level, right?
Yeah.
There's the child level where we grow and we change our whole lives. And growth is amazing. I find that kind of individual change just so inspiring, that people grow, and when you don't see growth, that's where it's hard for me. And when I don't see that growth, people are stymied. And then development, I guess on a higher level, that how an organization or a group or society develops and changes or works to develop and change something. And that could all try to change individuals, so I guess it goes at the group level and individuals. Development, change is amazing to me. Statistically, I look at analysis of change, so I like charting like growth and lines and movement of people over time.
In Singapore, the way it's framed is it's really GDP growth and more money coming into the country than leaves the country. So especially being an export-driven economy the way that it is, it's increasing revenues from the production of goods, and then that money filtering down to being able to employ people. I mean, one of the things Singapore prides itself on is 100% employment, which is probably a bit of embellishment, but I mean, it's a much higher rate of employment than any other country in this region. I mean, that's probably pretty defendable. So it's really the ability to employ people, absorb immigration inflows, and still provide opportunities for your local people. Whereas that's probably very different in a developing nation, where it's more pulling people out of poverty, raising their lifestyles, that sort of thing. So I guess that varies from where you are.
So can you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm Catherine Rosen-Gandian, and I'm also Fulbrighting in Singapore.
So what is your vision of an ideal world?
I don't think that exists, or can exist.
Well, but if you could just imagine any world, whether or not it's possible, what would it be?
I would imagine a world where you have the least possible constraints on your personal freedoms, but somehow magically everyone is able to act in a moral way, basically.
And so you don't have any strategies to get there?
No, I don't think that's possible.
Okay. And